My advice is to be here now. And I would tell you that 100% of the time, an experience with homelessness is not a result of material poverty. It's a result of relational poverty. And what I mean by be here now is be present in your day, have eyes to see those who are hurting, and be willing to show up.
Welcome to the You've Heard It Said podcast. I'm Jason.
And I'm Allie.
And this is the 9th season of the podcast. And if you're kind of just catching up with us or maybe just starting this season, we'd love for you to go back and watch the first 3 episodes because we're asking some really big and important questions. We're talking about how do I love my neighbor and how do I get started and how do I not mess this up?
In today's episode, we're talking about homelessness and food insecurity.
Which should be really easy.
Yeah.
Just you and I, we know all this stuff.
Easy topics.
25
clearly.
minutes, we'll just have it all settled.
Right. Exactly. Exactly not. So these are very complex topics. And there's no way that we could cover every nuance in 25 minutes.
Right.
But we have some really smart people who are going to help talk with us.
And you might remember Rachel from season 6, I think it was, of the podcast. We're going back to talk with her. She's the Chief Innovation Officer of City Care right here in Oklahoma City. So that'll be great.
It'll be so good. And then Abigail, part of our life group, is going to talk with Beverly, who attends one of our campuses and serves in these areas in her community. And you're just going to love her.
Yeah, Beverly's awesome.
Rachel, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you tell us a little bit about how you first got involved with the issues of homelessness and food insecurity?
Sure. I have been in the nonprofit space for 20 years. I have worked on societal ills all over the map, education issues, health and research issues. I've done some arts, but I've been in the mentorship space for about 12 years. I was with a national organization who specialized in mentors for students who were underinvested in maybe in single guardianship homes. That was a lot of the kiddos that we served. And I really struggled with the idea that kids were going to school hungry and we were expecting them to pay attention and to succeed in school.
Yeah, that's really hard. So what did it look like for you to transition from that sort of space to here at City Care? And what does your work look like here at City Care?
Yeah, it actually honestly took a lot because I was in a position with a team that I had built and I was really pleased to be there. City Care recruited me for about 12 months.
Wow.
And what finally convinced me to make a move to City Care was that they were local and they were very agile. If they saw a need, their sort of reputation was to step in to emerging needs and to meet them. But there was obedience to their community and to God that really inspired me, and I wanted to be a part of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about, for homelessness and food insecurity, what do those issues look like in Oklahoma? What's unique about them? And what do they have in common with the rest of the country?
We are way more alike the rest of the country than we are unique in the issues of homelessness and food insecurity. So in the United States, 600,000 people will be homeless in any given year. The large majority of those are individuals, but there are still about 25% that are families with children.
Yeah.
Disproportionately Black and brown. That is residue from forced segregation laws of the 60s and 70s. And Oklahoma City mirrors that. So in a given year, there will be somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 people who experience homelessness. That breakout of individuals to families is almost the same as is disproportionately Black and brown. Unique to Oklahoma City, I would say, is the Key to Home initiative, which is fairly new. So there is a citywide collaboration between agencies who are working on this issue, and that is unique. We are closing out our first year of that initiative with the goal of moving 500 folks who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Oklahoma City into housing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more then about how is City Care helping meet the needs in Oklahoma City?
Again, City Care is willing to step into emerging needs and just sort of figure it out. We did that when we built our first supportive housing community, which we're sitting in right now. The story of this location is that after the Murrah bombing happened, the supportive housing that was downtown was destroyed.
Okay, wow.
And
yeah.
it was owned by the YMCA. They weren't going to be able to rebuild right away. So City Care said, we have some momentum. Let's see what we can do. Up until that point, our foray into homeless services was a weekly meal at a church.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a big step of faith
Yeah.
and a big step of obedience, honestly.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. We have, over the last 25 years, we've built 115 units of permanent supportive housing. We currently own 112, and that's because 3 of our residents went on to buy their home, which
that's
is
so cool.
a fabulous
Yeah.
story for them. We did the same thing when we opened the night shelter in April of 2021, and since then we've offered over 150,000 nights of rest to folks
Wow.
in a low barrier shelter. So what's coming up next for City Care? This is inside baseball. Don't tell anyone. We
So
just
excited.
closed. We just closed on a building next door to the shelter where we will be opening a respite shelter for folks who are coming out of the hospitals into homelessness. They're way too sick to be
yeah.
on the street, but they're unfortunately too well to stay in the hospital.
Yeah. Well, what a gap to be able to help fill. That is amazing.
Yes. And you wouldn't know it until you are offering shelter to folks and you're seeing
Right.
folks come in and maybe, they're still in their hospital gown and they
Oh,
just
my
had a
goodness.
limb
Yeah.
amputated because of frostbite. So those sorts of things have been happening since we opened the night shelter. And while our staff is wholly ill-equipped because they aren't nurses, they do have hearts of gold and they do what they can.
Yeah.
So we would like to elevate that experience for our guests and do that with excellence with medical staff on site.
Yeah, of course. That is so exciting.
Yeah.
So for people listening who would like to start doing what they can to support people who are experiencing these needs, what advice would you give them?
Gosh, my advice is to be here now. And I would tell you that 100% of the time, an experience with homelessness is not a result of material poverty. It's a result of relational poverty. And what I mean by be here now is be present in your day, have eyes to see those who are hurting, and be willing to show up. I love corporate worship. I'm married to a worship pastor, but I also sense that the way that we honor the image bearer in our neighbor is just as sweet of a song to God as a worship song in a church building.
Yeah. In having some of these interviews that we've already had, one thing that has come up a few different times is if we pass by someone on a street corner, just feeling that tension of like, is there something that I should do? Is there a good next step I can take? For someone who's feeling that tension of like, I want to do something to help people in this situation, here's someone right in front of me.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I will tell you what I do.
Yes, that would be great.
Most of the time I stop my car. And
Okay.
when I don't, my kids hold me to account. They're like, Mom. Yeah. The one thing that I hear from my friends who have experienced homelessness or are currently experiencing homelessness is a real sense of isolation and not being seen.
Yeah.
And so, right now there is a gentleman who's living under an underpass 2 blocks from my house. He's a magnificent artist, and he's got a sweet little dog, and I'll stop and check in on him. That might not feel like dipping your toes in. That might feel like jumping off a cliff, right? So I would say that there is no harm in seeing someone, but also that doesn't require you fixing anything or meeting any need necessarily. What I would ask you to do is build a relationship and
So I was
build
going to
equity.
say, it's more of a conversation that you're having with them,
100%.
checking in, rather than
Yes.
just like handing them $20 and then continuing
That's
on your
right.
way.
I don't think there's any harm in handing them $20.
Yeah.
I don't think that what they do with that $20 is any of my concern.
Yeah.
If we are to move the needle, it's going to require more than organizations working with formal authority. It's going to require the informal influence of all of us taking care of each other.
Yeah. Okay, so stopping my car, maybe like choosing to start a conversation with someone. I'm an introvert. I'm naturally awkward in any conversation that I have. How do I get over my own sort of fear in this totally new sort of situation?
Yeah. I would say it won't be unlike any of those situations where you choose to step in. Maybe you're public speaking or you're going to a party where you don't know very many people. It's going to feel very much like that. I think that the key is to not take yourself so seriously, not feel like you have to meet every need and resolve their issue that is likely generation upon generation of trauma. I think if you go into it with the goal of building equity and building a relationship, and again, honoring the divine and seeing them as an image bearer, peer to peer, person to person, they will surprise you by how much they have to offer you, and hopefully you'll have something to offer them too.
So as you start stepping into these kinds of relationships, what do you start to see and learn that maybe wouldn't be obvious at first glance?
When you build equity in relationship with someone, and it's the same as you and I, you're not going to tell me all of your deepest, darkest the first time we meet, right? That's going to take time. And again, in Oklahoma City, 23% of the folks living outside have a physical disability, and then another 25% have co-occurring substance use disorder and mental health issues. So we're talking about really vulnerable people. So what I would love for your listeners to do is, number one, be really resourced in those basic needs. So understand if someone's having a mental health crisis, who do I call? There are organizations that have crisis intervention teams that will come out, and they likely know the individual because they have relationship with them. If someone needs access to shelter, who do I call? Most of the time I give out my cell phone number and I tell people, call me, I'll figure it out. I'll get them shelter. But understand what resources are around you and write them down. Keep them in your wallet. As you start building a relationship and you start to get to know someone, the same as your life will unfold to them, theirs will unfold to you. And you'll have a better sense of how you can support them, like you would have a better sense of how you would support any friend.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for talking to us today. I know that I learned a lot, and I can't wait for the people who are watching this to learn more too.
Honored to share, and I appreciate everything Lifechurch does in our communities and for City Care.
Well, thank you.
Beverly, thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm really excited to learn from you about just the ways that you're involved with a local food pantry in our community.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for asking me. It's an honor to be here. Two Lakes Pantry has truly been a blessing. This crazy, wonderful pastor by the name of Robert Davis, and I'm sure you know him.
Oh, I know Robert.
I would just let him know that I volunteered around the church, but I got to see him one day, and I asked if he knew of something that I could do to give back, and he talked to me. He and another lady, they were connected with this little church and this little pantry. He asked if I would be interested in starting, helping out, volunteering there. And I thought, well, sure. And he said, it's a couple of days a week. And I thought, well, yeah, that's just what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So I met him up there, and Sam O'Bannon, he was the director at the time and working there. And he had, I want to say maybe about 10 to 12 youngsters from his church. And what they would do was they were in this little bitty cubby room, and they would get donations, and they would take bags from like the grocery stores and bag up produce and bag up cans and whatever donations they would happen to get. And they would just hand them out to the people in the neighborhood. And that's what they were doing. And they did that for a good little while. But now it's a full-fledged pantry. We have about, I want to say 4 freezers, 3 that hold seafood and chicken and the basics. We have milk and eggs and all the necessities that they need. We have personal items for them. You can request a grocery box. If you're unable to come there, we will bring it to you.
I love that. So what do your days serving look like? What does that entail?
Okay, Monday mornings, are the drop-off days for the regional food bank. They send a truck and other donations from different churches, from different commercial businesses, grocery stores. Food comes on a pallet. This nice gentleman from the Oklahoma Food Bank, he unloads the food. We empty, the volunteers empty the pallets by putting stuff and then restocking the shelves. And that usually takes about maybe 2.5 hours, depending on the amount of volunteers that we have that day. Wednesdays is the actual distribution day.
Okay.
To hand out food. The volunteers, we come in early and we have meeting and prayer, and then they start shopping around 10 o'clock. And when I say shopping, we want them to feel like they're in an original grocery store.
Yeah.
We want them to feel like normal, some normalcy.
You're modeling it to make it feel like a grocery store.
Absolutely.
So they get to keep
Absolutely.
their dignity and the power of
Absolutely.
choice and making their own decisions.
Yep.
So as you are helping as a personal shopper, what has been the biggest impact that you've seen, or like an encouraging story from someone you've gotten to meet through this experience?
I've watched lives changed.
Tell me about that.
I've watched people who didn't have homes. I've watched people who didn't have places, who didn't have family. I've watched them. Now God has blessed them. They have homes. They have families. I've seen some ugly stuff, but I've also seen prayer. I've seen love at a time when it's so hard.
Yeah.
I've seen families changed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
But I've made so many different friends. And it just keeps growing. And God's not done.
Yeah.
I've watched children who were little when I first started. Now they're helping. And they're growing. There are a lot of times when there's no communication because I cannot understand you, but love is universal.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it. You show it, and they'll show it back. Two Lakes Pantry, we're family, and we encourage, we uplift, we feed, we carry home, we take home. If you're homeless, we find your place. If you're lonely, we're there.
Yeah.
We're there.
So I love all of this because you started serving at a local food pantry a few years ago, and now it's more than just about food. You're saying that the individuals you're getting to see on a weekly basis, and even probably throughout the week, they're more than just the people who you shop with. They're your family. They're people you get to love and care for and to show the love of Jesus to.
Yes.
And I love the reminder that it's about so much more than just meeting that very basic need. And so I'm curious, as someone who wants to get started in this issue of homelessness and food insecurity, what are some practical first steps or any advice that you would give me as I get started?
There's someone you know that needs encouraging. Everybody has someone. You have to take a step. You have to go and ask yourself, what can I do? You have to start by asking. And I'm a firm believer, and if you ask God, He will definitely point you in the direction you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And you have to take a step. And you might be afraid, because I was afraid because I'd heard so many things, but you can't let your fear take over. You just got to go do it. And with Two Lakes, all you have to do is just call. If you want to volunteer, they'll take you.
Yeah.
And some of the things that they need from you is just a background check. And that's about it. And then they'll put you to work.
I love that. Well, Beverly, thank you so much for talking with me. I feel so encouraged. I'm excited to find ways that I can take my next step.
Yes.
And this has just been an incredible conversation. So thank you so much.
Shout out to Two Lakes, Life.Church, my family. I love you guys. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure. I just love it. And I thank you so much. I thank God for this moment.
So Abigail, you got to talk with Beverly, and I don't think you knew this before you did, but she's one of my actual neighbors.
What?
Yes. So she's just like a street over. And whenever we'll go on skateboard rides or walks around the block, she's like almost every time, I swear, she's out there waving at us, just like so kind and warm to our kids.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you talked, I'm just curious, what's sticking in your head? Like, what are you still thinking about from your conversation?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she's always in her front yard, or is almost always in her front yard, because she just has that personality. Like, I feel like she makes everyone feel like you're just part of her family. And I felt that way when I was talking to her. But then when she was talking about the ways that she cares for the neighbors and the people who she gets to serve with at Two Lakes, she just talks about all of them like she's known them for forever, and like they are all her favorite people. And so I loved that. And then when we were getting really practical about like how can we serve people who are being impacted by homelessness or food insecurity, she was just talking about taking the step of faith to get started. She said a lot, what God calls you to do, he will also provide for. And so there have been times with the food pantry portion of Two Lakes specifically where they didn't know if they would have enough food to get through the number of people who were there. And every time there was always enough food, even when it looked like there wasn't going to be. And I thought that was really encouraging, and just the reminder that God does provide if we can be obedient to what he's calling us to do.
Man, I love that you share that, because that idea of God's provision reminds me of the Lord's Prayer that Jesus taught us to pray. And so it says in Matthew 6, verses 9 through 13, Jesus says, pray like this: Our Father in heaven, may your name be kept holy. May your kingdom come soon. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today the food we need, and forgive us our sins as we've forgiven those who sin against us. And don't yield to temptation, but rescue us from the evil one. And what I love about that is that if Jesus is asking all of us to pray that every day, and he's asking us to pray for daily bread, then it makes sense that sometimes God would use us to answer that prayer on behalf of other people. And so I love that you shared that.
I have two thoughts kind of running through my head as you read that scripture. One is, I had someone one time tell me, you are yes. I'm like, what does that mean? And they were just basically saying people are asking God for all kinds of things that they need. And you can be yes to them. You can be God's yes to their prayer. And so if people are praying that prayer, give us today our daily bread, or, all the other things in it, then we can be God's yes. And the other thing I'm thinking of is one time I decided to lead a whole big group of people in the Lord's Prayer, and I just kept saying the wrong words. I just couldn't get them right. And I think that's one of the things that keeps us from starting is we're worried, I'm going to get some of this wrong. Yeah. I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or mess this up. And you know what? It was okay. Yeah. We still pretty much prayed the Lord's Prayer together. I think God understood it. And I think that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah. And so as you talk with your life group this week, here's a question I'd love you to ask. What are some of the practical ways that we can start to love our neighbors who are experiencing food insecurity and homelessness in our communities?
And like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, homelessness and food insecurity are very complex problems. But like Jason said, start with your yes, start somewhere, and just know how you can know a name and share a meal.
Next time, we're going to learn about how we can get involved with addiction recovery, and you can learn about that right here.